Red Rock West is a 1993 released crime thriller directed by John Dahl.
Nicolas Cage stars as Mike, the drifter who's travelled from Texas to Wyoming to try and get a drilling job. Unfortunately, he's got an old knee injury, and unfortunately that means he doesn't get the job. So he's down to his last $5. He stops at a gas station, puts his last $5 into the tank, and asks the gas station attendant knows anywhere he can get any work. And he points him in the direction of a town called Red Rock, which is about 50 miles away. I mean, whether you could get 50 miles on $5 of whatever he's putting into his gas guzzling car, I don't know, but I suppose we're early 90s, so I guess, you get more for your money then. Yeah. So he heads off to Red Rock, and when he gets there, he heads into the local bar. The barman, Wayne, is in there, played by J.T. Walsh, who mistakes him for somebody else, says, are you Lyle, are you here for the job? Mike is obviously desperate, he's got no money. So he says, yeah, I'm here for the job. So they go into Wayne's office, and it turns out the job is to kill Wayne's wife. He gives him a pile of cash, $5,000 for, before the job, and he promises him another $5,000 after the job. Mike doesn't quite know what to do, but he takes the money. As you can imagine, that there is an actual hitman on the way. So, lots of backstabbing and double-crossing and things like that ensue.
So this is our third week now of our Tarantino-esque theme. But before we get going, before you all say, what's Tarantino-esque about this? Steady on. Absolutely. This is not... I was watching it today. I've seen it before, a long time ago actually. But no, the whole time I was like, oh my God, there's nothing in here that's really Tarantino-esque. I mean, for a start, it came out in 93, so it came out after Reservoir Dogs. But there's nothing in here. If anything, to me, I felt that the kind of, the cast, the atmosphere, the music, kind of the setting, the kind of dreamlike feeling, to me felt kind of like David Lynchian. I mean, weirdly, these two words, Lynchian and Tarantino-esque, are now in the lexicon. They're in the dictionary.
There you go.
I think they were put in the dictionary a number of years ago. So, they can be used to kind of reference these kind of films, I suppose. But I found this one, before we came up with a theme, we were kind of thinking, because obviously the reason we're doing this is because later in the month, Arrow are releasing a new Blu-ray of True Romance, and we're going to do a quick kind of video on that. So we thought, well, let's, do this theme around True Romance. Should we do it kind of, obviously True Romance wasn't directed by Tarantino, it was directed by Tony Scott, but it was written by Tarantino. So we thought, well, we could do kind of, I think you mentioned doing Neo-noir, which some of Tarantino's films, I think, borrow elements from the noir genre. And then I was like, well, maybe Tarantino-esque, because it's hard kind of, if you find lists of Tarantino-esque films, some of these films crop up in there, and you find lists of neo-noir films, and this one crops up in there as well. So, and we wanted to do this one, so it's not really Tarantino-esque. I suppose maybe, it's kind of, you could possibly kind of look at something like True Romance, an innocent man gets kind of caught up in wrongdoings and things like that, which kind of True Romance is.
Sleazy characters doing sleazy things, and it's all about money and killing people and stuff like that. So, it doesn't have the snappy dialogue that Tarantino flicks have. It's got the soundtrack is a bit more country tinged, isn't it, rather than the sort of stuff that is you would find in a Tarantino-esque film. But it's not, it's not like it's a million miles away. It's still a sort of crime flick of the 90s. So.
In fact, this film stands on its own. It's a very good film. It's a very watchable film with a very good cast in it. But interestingly, your kind of three main people in this, Nicolas Cage, Lara Flynn Boyle, and Dennis Hopper, have all turned up in David Lynch films. So you put them all together and it feels, in this setting, it feels quite Lynchian. There is a slight dreamlike quality to the film. The way, I think, as the film opens up, it kind of felt a little bit like that. You've got this character that's kind of stuck in this town. He can't get out of this town. And as much as he tries, he keeps kind of coming back to the town. And there's the whole, you see the welcome to Red Rock. You see that numerous times throughout the film, because every time he tries to get out, he ends up having to go back, and that feels a little bit Lynchian. It's very neo-noir, this. Obviously a neo-noir film is called neo-noir for a number of reasons, but mostly it kind of harks back to the good old days of noir films from the 1940s and the 50s. And it kind of feels like a neo-noir film should feature not just the lighting, but maybe the themes, the characters, the setting, of the noir films of the 40s and 50s, and there is a lot of that in here. You've got your kind of femme fatale character. You've got characters that you don't trust. The murder is in there. And all the kind of great things that the noir films had in them is here in this film. Along with the lighting, there's some great lighting scenes. There's some wonderful, there's a great scene in the film that takes place with a man two characters in a cupboard looking out through the slats of the wardrobe or the cupboard, which itself is kind of a little bit reminiscent of Blue Velvet. So I think, for me, way more in here from something like the noir films of the past, and also mostly David Lynch. But I'm not, for 1 second saying that takes anything. It doesn't detract anything from this film, because I think this is a wonderful, crazy look at strange people in kind of Midwestern America, and it's a joy, this film.
Yeah.
And, Nicolas Cage, crazy as ever.
I mean, he doesn't quite get the Cage rage.
He doesn't get quite not
it does these days.
No, but I think he is the only man in cinema history that can get away with doing those quite extreme push-ups on the middle of nowhere at the beginning of the film, which I thought he kind of climbs out of his car, having been asleep all for a while, and then he kind of gets down and does these quite extreme push-ups, and you're like, they just put the camera on him and he just did whatever he wanted, which is great.
I mean, his character is a bit of a trope because he's an ex-Marine, which and obviously he can do one-armed push-ups.
He can look after himself.
He can handle himself, which is quite common in films like this, where the main character, it might be down on their luck, but their past means they can handle themselves, in whatever situation the film throws at them.
Like Nick Cage in Con Air.
Yeah, exactly. yes. So not an uncommon theme. Yeah, but he's great in it. Not quite full tilt Cage rage as we would expect in a lot of films these days. There are moments
where he kind of shouts a bit, and I mean, he's a great actor. I mean, he's one of those actors that I think you're going to love or hate him. I mean, he does roles, not a fan of the Wicker Man remake at all, mostly because I love the original, but he's just completely insane in that film. He's one of those actors that he can go full tilt, over the top, and sometimes that suits the role he's playing perfectly, other times not so much. But he's very watchable. He's kind of like, talking about noir, he's a bit kind of, there's a bit of Humphrey Bogart in him. He's one of those characters, he gets great lines, and he speaks great lines really well. And he's a very memorable actor. He often plays very memorable characters.
But then the first, he can't put across lots of stuff without any lines. The first part of the film, there's no dialogue. But we learn so much about, obviously we see his tattoo, so we know he was in the Marines, and he does his one-arm push-ups, and obviously we see that he's sleeping in his car. And then when he goes to this gas station, there's nobody there at first, so he sort of goes around the back and he can see a box with some cash in it, and he's looking at it, and you can see in his face, should I take it? Should I not take it? Yes, he's down on his luck, but he's still quite an honest guy. The fact that in his interview he reveals that he does have this injury which will preclude him from having the job. His friend has set him up with this interview. He goes, why did you tell them? And he goes, well, they'll find out anyway. So, he'd rather be upfront and honest about it.
Yeah, and he's one of those. Yeah, there's not many, but they often said, I think that Steve McQueen was an actor who could act with his eyes. He knew exactly what he was thinking about just by looking at his eyes. And I think Nicolas Cage certainly is one of those. I think those kind of actors, they have a kind of intensity about them, as Steve McQueen did. And he's really great in this. But they're all great. It's a wonderful cast in this film. Obviously Dennis Hopper. Doing Dennis Hopper's, I mean, he's very, the kind of the sneery, don't trust this guy at all, kind of Dennis Hopper, which he does so well.
Yeah. Well, they actually wanted him for the sheriff part, for J.C. Walsh's part.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what they originally asked him to do. But he because of Blue Velvet, they didn't want him to play the same sort of character again, and didn't think that he would want to. Yeah. But he was like, I want that part.
Although J.T. Walsh's character is also someone who you don't trust.
No.
So I think Dennis Hopper, had he played that character, it probably would have been quite similar, I suppose. Yeah, no, it's just and like I said before, it's got some great one-liners, and there's two lines that made me really laugh, kind of out loud. There was one in the beginning where Nicolas Cage is talking to, when he first meets Lara Flynn Boyle's character, Susan, and he says, I hate to see an innocent woman get hurt, but it's an awful lot of money, which I thought was a great line. And then later on, Dennis Hopper, so we won't obviously do spoilers or anything, so J.T. Walsh says to him, do you know where they went? And he says, no, how could I? I've been staring at my damn eyelids for the last hour and a half. And that just made me howl with laughter. And I think, and again, it feels, that's another film that kind of, feeling that takes it back to those old classic, noir films, is that they all had great dialogue, really well written dialogue that took me along the whole time, and I believed in these characters. All a bit mad, a bit stupid, some of them, but I totally believed in them and went for the ride. And yeah, really, really nicely done. It was actually written by Rick and John Dahl, brothers.
Yeah.
But I don't think Rick hasn't a huge amount of credits to his name. But John Dahl has obviously, we did The Last Seduction by him, which itself is a kind of neo-noir.
And that also has J.T. Walsh in it. And, obviously he passed away. I think he was only in his 50s, wasn't he?
He was quite
young. Far too young.
Yeah.
And, he's always, we did Breakdown, he was in that really sort of menacing character. He was just great at these sort of slimy, menacing, nasty characters. Yeah, whenever he crops up in the few films that he did, I always enjoy his performances.
Yeah, and he's great here because we won't say what happens, but when you first meet him, you're like, he just seems okay, but he's clearly not right because he's, trying to get a hit out on his wife. So there's something not quite right there, but then something happens later and he's not quite the kind of placid, calm person that he's made out to be.
No, there's some good reveals about characters along the way, which
really
it's so long since I'd seen it, I've forgotten about them. So there's some good little twists and things. I think I saw Last Seduction first, and then I was an instant sort of John Dahl fan,
right?
And then went and checked out some other stuff of his. So he was kind of in the 90s. He was like quietly making loads of neo-noirs and a bit kind of a lesser known Brian De Palma sort of.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly things in here that you can think like the Coen brothers. The Blood Simple was obviously a neo-noir type film. You're more that way than Tarantino. Yeah, completely in this film. So I apologise for our title of Tarantino-esque when it's really not Tarantino-esque at all. But there's certainly things that, and I think much like we kind of said with Love and the 45 last week, which itself kind of borrowed elements. These films borrow elements from films that Tarantino himself has borrowed elements from. So in a way, I suppose it's a bit of a far stretch to call it a Tarantino-esque film, but there are certainly the similar links there.
So I'd love to see Nicolas Cage in a Tarantino film.
Yeah, and in fact, no. Apart from Dennis Hopper was in True Romance, of course, but there's not many people here. Anyone that had appeared in Tarantino films, so there's no link really.
No, just people would like to see him.
And it's got a great cast. We've got Dan Shaw in here. We've got Timothy Carhart, who's an actor we always see kind of cropping up in places. He was in films like in Ghostbusters.
Is he the guy?
The
musician.
He
doesn't have any lines, does he?
Doesn't have any lines.
Oh no, he does. He speaks to Dana, doesn't he?
He does, a little bit. Briefly, that's right. Yeah. And then he was in Working. He had lots of Harrison Ford films. I don't know if they're mates, but he was in Working Girl, Air Force One, and Witness.
Oh right.
Yeah, but he's kind of turned up in lots of things over the years. Dwight Yoakam was here. You didn't realise he was a country and western
didn't
singer.
know. I saw it. I was watching the credits. I saw he had a song on the soundtrack. I was like, oh right. So then I googled him. It was like, oh wow, he's some massive country and western singer. I was like, I didn't realise. Apparently, I listened to a bit of the commentary afterwards, and apparently, when they were filming, on location, Dennis Hopper and Nicolas Cage and the locals, were interested. But once Dwight Yoakam turned up, they all went nuts. And then, like the cops that were sort of guarding the set were like, "Oh, can you sign my cap?" and things like that. They went nuts for him. So I was like, "Wow, I did not. I knew who he was, and I've seen him in other films, but no, I don't know. I just never realised he was a country star who sold millions of records."
Talking about commentary, you have it on disc.
I do,
yeah.
DVD. DVD from whenever this was years ago. But it's got a commentary on it. That's it. Well, apart from the trailer. I didn't get to listen to all of it, but it's by both Dahl brothers, and there's loads of interesting facts in there. Like the fact that they wanted Dennis Hopper for J.T. Walsh's part at first, and and the craziness over Dwight Yoakam when he showed up on set. So they're really chatty and loads of interesting facts on there. There's not. I think Germany's had a Blu-ray and that's it. So it kind of forgotten about, which is a shame. It could do with a nice spruced up special edition.
What is it with Germany? Because
I don't know.
Last week it was Austria, wasn't it? Love and the 45 never got an Austrian release.
I don't know. It's strange, isn't it? Why that is?
It's probably down to rights, isn't it? Down to copyrights and things like that, probably.
Yeah, I think they do have a couple of sort of little boutique labels over there that seem to release stuff that doesn't really get released anywhere else. I don't know how English friendly it is though, so check that out before buying it. if you can't speak German.
It's a terrible front cover though.
Yeah, it's like weird, sort of.
It's a bit
stretched.
Yeah, it's a bit stretched.
I mean, I seem to remember the original poster being like that as well. So,
yeah.
I don't know why it's like that. I don't know, it's 90s design.
Yes.
Pre-Photoshop.
Indeed. So I think, it's a great film. It's great fun. If you don't know it, go and check it out, definitely. If you like, if you want to maybe have go back to the kind of the early noir films, it's full of all the tropes and all the stuff that make those great kind of 40s and 50s noir films so special and so great. All that stuff is in here. The lighting is great. The cast are great. The dialogue is great. Yeah, I think this is a great film from the 90s.
Lara Flynn Boyle's, femme fatale is straight totally
out. Yeah, and even the way she dresses actually is kind
she's
of
really pale.
She's very pale, and she's got kind of this trouser suit, which is kind of reminiscent to some of the dress sense in the 1940s and 50s. So there's certainly a lot of links here that go back to the kind of those noir films of that period. So that was Red Rock West, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Hit the subscribe button up there, and don't forget to push the bell for notifications. There's other videos to check out over there. Come and find us on social media, and join us again next week for another video.